Hi there, welcome back. Today we're going to be making a recipe that can be used several different ways. Some of you might have the ingredients salsa. The recipe called for black beans and a can of corn. This recipe can be used as a dip, but we're also going to investigate how we can use it for a filling. And today we're going to cover some ways to make healthy snacks. So let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead and opened the cans, and just as a reminder, these cans, once you open them, are very sharp, so you want to be really careful with that. The black beans have a liquid on it that sometimes contains more salt than what we need, so I rinsed the beans in the can and drained off the liquid. The same with the corn. So we're just going to take a bowl and dump in these ingredients. You will notice on the recipe, I believe it's called Cowboy Caviar, that it calls for chopped tomatoes and chopped onion and maybe some cilantro. So what we've done is added a shortcut. This salsa has all of those ingredients already in it, so it makes it super simple. And if you're going on a trip or you're camping, or these are things that you could have in your pantry, you wouldn't necessarily have to have fresh onions, fresh tomatoes, fresh garlic on hand. So it's a good thing to just have these in your cabinet and put it together. So we're going to add the salsa as we go. And this, as we've had our theme with smoothies, and last week we talked about oats, one of the benefits that I like with cooking for myself is that I get to use my creative superpowers. So as you're mixing this together, you decide that you want it to be thicker, then you just add less salsa. If you want it to be a little bit runnier, then you can add more. Last week we also talked about the safety of not tasting as we go. So if you're cooking this by yourself, it might not be that much of an issue, but if it's a dish that you want to share, you might be tempted to reach in here and take a bite off of your spoon, but remember, everything that goes on from your mouth goes right in there, and there are certain things in this world we don't want to share, like what's on our hands and what's in our mouth. So, quick, easy, prepared salsa. How I like to serve this at home is to have a batch fixed in the refrigerator, and instead of grabbing something that's less healthy, we can spoon some of this out, eat it with chips. There's bagged chips that you all are familiar with, but there's also a way that we can even take a bag of corn chips and make those healthier. These are tortillas that you should have received, and we're going to use those in a little bit for a couple other snacks, but I also wanted to show you, I've pre-cut, just with a pizza cutter or a knife, some triangles. And what you can do is put a little bit of oil, either in a spray can or maybe in a jar. You can brush it on there with a paper towel, or if you have a pastry brush, just go ahead and brush these with some oil. You can put some salt and pepper on it, and you just want to bake these for about 5 or 10 minutes. Keep an eye on them, and they make a great homemade chip for the salsa. So that's a way that you can also reduce some of the fat and preservatives in bags of chips that might not be the best. So the second thing that this is handy to have around is if you're a little more hungry than just a regular snack, you can take one of those tortillas that we've been talking about, and we can fill this as a burrito or a quesadilla filling. So what I like to do is put about half in the middle, and this doesn't even require an oven. You can microwave these to warm up your filling. We're going to add sprinkle some cheese on top, and this brings us to another good point we're going to talk about today. You might have gotten a block of cheese like this, or you could also buy it pre-shredded. So when you shop there's a price tag on the shelf, and what will be on there is a price per ounce. And so sometimes the block of cheese is on sale, sometimes the bags are. Most often the block of cheese is going to be cheaper per ounce, and you can compare those at a quick glance. So what we like to do is encourage people to buy this and shred it yourself. So you're saving some extra dollars. You can go ahead and shred the whole block if you want, put half in the freezer if you're not going to use it. You can shred it as you go. So that's a great way to save some money. I've already pre-shredded this, so I'm going to sprinkle it on top. And all you do is microwave this. You've got a burrito, beans, corn, and salsa, lots of vegetables and some good protein in there. You fold this in half and you have an awesome lunch. Okay, so we're going to keep with the theme of some ingredients that we have used in the past week. Last week we had oats, and we also passed out peanut butter. I hope you guys had a chance to try the breakfast bars that we use the oats and the peanut butter. So peanut butter is one of those staple items that I like to have on hand. I like to pick it up when it's on sale. And last week we had a breakfast bar, more like a dessert. This week we're going to practice. We're going to take one of our tortillas and spread peanut butter inside and put some apples in it. So it's another quick snack or a breakfast food that's really easy to make. I don't think that we have talked about knife safety yet, so we're going to go ahead and review. I have a cutting board here, and I like to cut on a cutting board. It's easier for cleanup, so I don't have my counters messed up, and most importantly, the knives that you use stay sharper when they're hitting a cutting board versus your counters. So as you can see, this cutting board slides around, and that wouldn't be the safest thing while we're cutting. So you have a paper towel like this. I'm going to go ahead and get it wet. And this is going to act as a magnet. It's going to stick this cutting board right to the counter and keep it from moving around. So that's the first step. Second step is, a lot of people are nervous, as they should be, about sharp objects. But what I have found is that a knife that is really dull is actually more unsafe because it requires more pressure. We're pushing down, it's not sharp, it's not doing its job, and it's easier to cut yourself actually with a dull knife than it is a sharp knife. That being said, when you have a sharp knife, the knife doesn't have to be big. This is about a small, medium-sized knife that is comfortable for my hand. That's the most important thing. Some of your hands might be smaller, so if it's a small paring knife, same safety skills are going to apply. So whatever your hand is comfortable with. Second, we're going to talk about grip. If you have your hand under the knife like this, you want to make sure that your thumb isn't near the blade. So what I like to suggest, and what is the safest, is to pinch the blade. So we're actually going to have our finger and our thumb pinch it so they're on top. The rest of our fingers are tucked under. So this is the proper grip. All fingers are away from the blade. The second safety tip is we're going to think about the shape of what we're cutting. If you'll think about it, a lot of fruit, very few fruits are naturally flat. But just like our cutting board, flat is safer. So we have to figure out how to take this round object and make it as safe as possible. And that way, that would be creating a flat surface. So if you were in class with me before, or if this was your first time, we like to hold whatever we're cutting with a claw. So that way, we also can call it an arch or a claw. So we're keeping our fingertips away from the cutting surface. So we grab this apple or whatever onion, potato, even a cucumber, you're going to hold it so your fingertips are away. I'm going to make a flat surface by cutting off the bottom of our apple. So I also like to have my elbow kicked out. That way my fingers are naturally aligned. Everything's away from the blade. I'm pinching, fingertips here are curled around. I'm going to make one slice here at the end. Now you can see that this is flat and it's going to hug the cutting board and not wiggle around. Now, I used to see my mom or my grandmother take an apple and cut it in half, and then they would take a smaller knife and cut out all the center. Well, I learned this trick that we are actually going to avoid the seeds and the core by cutting around it. And it's so much simpler. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna see the stem in the middle. That tells us that the core is right below it. So we're gonna cut on the side, just a little bit away. You see how my knuckles are bumping against the blade? That tells my fingertips to stay tucked under, and the knife can glide right along my knuckle. If my fingertips were out here, the knife blade is gonna get my fingernails, and that's not gonna be fun. So notice how my elbow's kicked out. I'm gripping with the claw, got my knuckles down, and we're just gonna make a quick slice. And you can see that we've avoided getting into the core where the seeds are. Now this takes a lot of practice because not all fruits or vegetables are perfect. And sometimes you might go ahead and get some seeds in there, and that's okay. This tells us about the length of this square core that's in the middle. So I'm gonna do a second cut. And we're basically going to have a square when we get finished. Pivot my apple, one more cut, and the last cut, we're cutting right along the core. So that way, this is all we have to throw away. No seeds, no mess to carve out. Now we're left with 4 pieces of apple. We've already have a flat surface, so remember that's the key when we're slicing. Take the fruit or vegetable, put it on its flat surface, have my claw hand out, and I'm just gonna make some long parallel slices. This works for pears and any kind of fruit or vegetable that has seeds in the middle. This particular method works really well. So we've got our apple sliced. Next thing we're gonna do is we have our tortilla ready. This particular recipe doesn't call for us to heat up the tortilla. So if you have some of that peanut butter that we had last week, I'm gonna take some and spoon some right on top of the tortilla. This is something that you can make up and wrap, have it at a picnic, take it with you. Doesn't require refrigeration. You can grab it on your way out the door to an event, snack, or a good lunch. We've got our fruit, we've got our grains that we talked about last week in our tortilla, and we have our peanut butter, which is a great protein. So you take your apples and we lay them in the middle of the peanut butter. A peanut butter apple combination was something that I didn't grow up having, but once I tried it, I really liked. It had a nice salty, sweet taste. So I found that a lot of people weren't that open to it, but once they tried it, they really enjoyed it. So you take this and you can roll it up and have a burrito snack. Also, if you're making this for others, once it's folded, the peanut butter is naturally going to stick together. Sometimes it behaves depending on the shape of your apple. You can also cut it in triangles and share with your friends or have a nice snack. So that's our second way that we can use tortillas, peanut butters and fruit. We have our salsa that we've made and our homemade chips that we can scoop and have our salsa, and also our burrito. So those are some healthier snacks for you guys to try. I really enjoyed being with you. I look forward to seeing you guys again soon, and hopefully next week we'll have you here and we'll have a new recipe to try. So take care, be safe, and I'll see you soon.